Welcome to Harvest to Pour, the business of beverages, with your host, Matthew Schiff. This is the podcast for all of those who are involved in the agriculture all the way to the distribution of beverages. And now your host, Matthew Schiff.
Hello and welcome to Harvest to Pour. I'm your host, Matthew Schiff, and today I am here with Junior Silva, co-founder of Prime Coffee Company, a specialty coffee company that brings the finest imported raw green coffee beans from Brazil to enthusiasts around the world. I'm also here with Conor VanBuskirk, the founder of Upshot Coffee in Cottleville, Missouri. I had Conor on Harvest to Pour back in episode 4, and one of the subjects we talked about with Conor was his team's experience visiting a small coffee farm in Brazil. That coffee farm happens to belong to your family. Is that correct, Silva?
Yes, that's my dad's farm.
All right. So real quick, before we get into talking to Junior here, Conor, you can tell us real quick, just kind of give us a brief introduction of Upshot Coffee again?
So Upshot Coffee was founded in 2012 as a guest roaster. We highlighted all kinds of beautiful coffees from all over the country and all over the world. And then in about 2020, we bought a roaster and we started roasting our own coffee in-house. And 2021, we opened up this roasting facility here in Weldon Spring. And we have gone into grocery. We operate a couple different cafes. We specialize in selling espresso to other shops, selling single origin to other shops, and then our own 2 cafes that we own and operate. Our intent is to continue to connect farmers with customers. So we are looking for more and more people like Junior's family where we can visit their farm. We can see the impact it makes when we pay more for our coffee, and we can start to build relationships with people versus typically the way that most of us get started, which is, contacting a few importers and starting to bring in things that taste really good. Now we're starting to move tasting really good with also making it more relational and seeing the impact, having multi-year relationships.
All right. And I thought just having you two in the room, this would be a great opportunity to discuss that farmer and roaster relationships. You've already been to their farm, and now you're here with Prime Coffee, here promoting the green coffee. So, Junior, go ahead and give us a kind of a quick description about Prime Coffee and how it got started. What was your inspiration for getting this going? And bring us up to date.
So like two years ago, I think my daddy had a heart attack and I was trying to help him. I want to get his farm up and running. And I spoke to one of my friends. His name is Agner, my partner. And he gave me an idea to start working with specialty coffee, get away from the commodity to get a better price and give him more profit. So I came back to America and I met Conor through one of my friends, and it was the perfect fit for kind of business I was trying to do. And Conor helped me a lot, explaining to me how it works and how should I do it. And I brought some coffee back to America and some samples. He tried, he liked it. We made a relationship and that's how we started,
Okay. So Conor was integral in helping you kind of structure this business?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know that. That's really okay. I'm even happier I have the two of you in the room. So, so what else? What were some of the how long have you been in business right now so far?
We've been in business for 2 years.
2 years. Okay. What were some of the initial challenges you ran into getting going?
I think the main thing is building trust, coffee shops, and we're new, and getting them to try our coffee and give us the feedback.
Okay.
That's the main thing. In the coffee shop.
And how are you overcoming that right now, building that trust?
I build a relationship with a couple shops, and I send them free samples, and they will roast and try if they like it. I sell them the first sale for a really good price. Prove to them they're going to receive the coffee at the right time, and it is good coffee. The sample they are trying is the coffee I'm sending to them. And from there, trying to build a strong relationship.
Yeah, Conor, let us know a little bit about how this got built.
He's being a little humble too. I will say as well, I think the hardest part establishing a new green coffee is there's a million importers out there. Most people, established roasters, already have relationships. They already have contracts in place. It's really hard to break into. And so one of the upsides to using someone like Junior that we found, and we didn't know this going into it, is whenever we have an event, he brings people to our events. I mean, there's literally direct impact that you can't get from someone that you order coffee from out of a different city, right? So one of the things that I have appreciated the most about this relationship is, one, not only do I really like him and his family and his dad, and they hosted us for a week on their farm and they cooked for us and we got to know everyone. But whenever I have an event and I'm worried that, I need help getting the word out, Junior also owns several other businesses locally. He will lean into his network and he brings people out to our events and he helps promote Upshot Coffee for the cafe side. And they're tirelessly working to make sure we're successful the same way that we're trying to help them be successful. So I would say that's one thing that, like, if you're listening to this and you have any concept of using Prime Coffee or trying their coffee out, that's one thing that Junior will do really well is, one, he'll get it to you on time. He'll price it fairly. He'll give you incredible service. He'll work very hard for you. He supports you in a way that other people just can't. So that's one thing that just, I wanted to put that on record is, as we've helped him build his business or figure out how to break into the markets or just use our contacts to try and get his coffee in different places, it hasn't been a one-way relationship. He's very much been coming to every event we have, helping us fundraise to get back to Brazil, all the things that he could be doing that other people don't do or can't do because they don't live right down the street or within the same state. He's able to bring people out and support us. So that's been something that we're very grateful for as well.
That's great. So also one more thing, Conor, what were some of the pieces of advice you gave to Junior as far as he started building Prime Coffee to kind of get him at a place where he could start, selling to other roasters besides yourself?
We first helped him just understand like where pricing is for Brazil's. For their coffees that they're doing, we helped them score their coffee so that they could give tasting notes to the people on the other end that they were sending them out to. We tried to identify roasters in the area that we thought might be a good fit, but it was really more about helping him understand, A, like where his coffee scored, which was higher than we assumed it was going to. It was very good. Two, understanding what the prices are just market-wise for what those coffees are for right now to get in the door, and then building from there.
It was very beneficial to him to kind of use you as a lab initially to get everything established. So when you come out, what are roasting buyers interested in when they come to green coffee? Yeah,
essentially, like, if you're coming to us to sell us green coffee, what are all the barriers that are going to be in your way? And there's a million of them. Like, I don't know if we talked about this on the last podcast, but when, my buddy Caleb Guns, who works out at his Brazilian gym, his Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym, said, hey, I've got a guy that's got a dad with a farm in Brazil and I'm going to drop off some samples. Like, I fully expected it to be god awful and not to waste my time with it. Because that's just your assumption as a roaster when someone that you don't know from an unreputable company is just going to give you some green coffee from his dad's farm. My expectation is it's not going to be very good. And, I'm just going to politely decline. And we were able to roast it, cup it, and it kind of blew us away. So just understanding all the barriers that you have when you're trying to get into someone's roastery, because there's a million other people that have warehouses all over the country that can package all these different origins together. I mean, it's work to get that in there. And so just helping them figure out how we can do that and helping them get around the nose and helping them price it effectively to where he can at least get his foot in the door and start those relationships.
So Silva, do you believe that not only just the testimonial you get from Upshot, they try things out, has that helped accelerate your business here?
Yeah, that helped me a lot and also gave me confidence.
Confidence, okay.
To bring the right coffee. Before I brought the coffee from Brazil, they tried and we picked the best spot. So before the coffee even got to America, I knew it was good and I knew the score. It's a different score in Brazil when you go try coffees and speak to farmers. Everyone scored their coffee really high. Having somebody here that I can trust, they'll tell me like, yeah, this is good coffee. You should bring it that help.
Okay. So you've established some more trust through other roasters locally here. And are you just here in Missouri or are you starting to branch out further now?
In Missouri, I only have 2 shops I work with.
Okay.
I have another one in Illinois, Ohio. I have some other states.
Okay.
Yeah.
Midwest. All right. So, all right. Now, what would right now, since you're 2 years in, somebody else, there's a lot of farms out all over, not just Brazil, but all over, but going to be other representatives showing up, small farms that want to start something like this. But what would advice learned over the 2 years give them if they want to come start selling green coffee?
I think it's a hard business. It's hard to get in. I see a lot of people like, make sure you know what you're bringing, what kind of coffee you're selling. Because I spoke to a lot of Brazilians that brought coffee to America and just bring any coffee. And they believe like, oh, it's good coffee, people gonna like it. And they don't understand coffee at your shop, and people really know what they're getting. They try, they easily tell you it's not a good coffee, I'm not gonna buy from you. I think that's the main thing. You gotta know. From my experience with dealing with other Brazilians, friends, and people in the coffee business, they just think coffee is coffee. Get any coffee from anywhere and just bring, buy. Or for Brazilians, something I learned a lot. Brazil coffee is good, but it's not the best coffee in the world. And my Brazilian friends do believe like, oh, it's Brazil. Brazil is the best coffee, and not like that too. Yeah, there's good coffee all around it.
The lesson there is know your coffee, where it's being, know your farmer, essentially, what's being developed, why it's being developed, in order for roasters to trust it.
When I would say one of the things that we talked about a lot with him is when he first brought the coffee over, there was a lot of lot numbers, right? And so for us to sell a coffee effectively, we've got to be able to kind of tell the farmer's story and give more information on the farm. So that's one thing that we've been working with Junior on in Agner is whenever we bring these lots in, we need to have pictures of the farm, pictures of the farmer, a farm story so that people can connect with that. Because I think the perception is that Brazilian coffee has always kind of been a commodity coffee because they have a lot of, but in our opinion, Brazil has incredibly beautiful coffees. Once you locate them and you find those specific farms, I mean, there is insane Brazilian coffee coming over now that I would put on par with anyone. So I think that old message, but that is a message he's trying to overcome because that is a perception. A lot of your commodity, cheaper coffees tend to come from Brazil because they have the ability to have massive farms with massive combines because there's flatter areas you can grow. The region we're working with and where his dad's farm is, they're 20-acre farms. They're 4,000 feet above sea level, literally growing coffee on a mountainside. So, I mean, it's nothing like what people assume a commodity Brazil coffee is. And that's around his dad's farm. That's every farm, right? And you see that these guys are literally working the land themselves, hand picking these cherries, processing this stuff. They've got it on their own personal patio. There's not massive washing stations in this area. Like, it is very much a farmer and his family picking beautifully well cared for coffee, drying it. And then unfortunately, if there's no one there that understands what they're actually growing and harvesting, you have people that can just come by and buy it for commodity prices, even though it's not commodity coffee. And so that's what we're trying to figure out is how do we get over there, establish more relationships with the people around his father's farm, and then get everyone to understand the value of their coffee to where we can pay them a little bit more. And then we can kind of highlight this region. And that's kind of our calling card of an area that we believe in, we want to invest in, and we want to be a part of. Because I don't think, honestly, most people know, or these farmers even know how good this coffee actually is.
Yeah. And I believe what you said, specialty coffee roasters being the specialty blend are going to be the key pieces to highlight the best of coffee in Brazil. It's just getting the right pieces and educating each other back and forth.
And I would say one other note that I think is probably Junior has learned, and it's certainly been something that's been apparent to me too in his process, is like, if you're going to get into this business and you want to start importing coffee, start developing relationships with roasters. And even if it's just being seen in their shop, if it's going to their cuppings, if it's reaching out to them, have, some connections and, some people that want your coffee or at least like you, so that when you bring a container in, you bring in whatever you're going to bring in, you now have relationships where you're welcome in those shops and there's a connection there instead of just trying to cold call as a nobody and hope that people take you seriously. A lot of the people we've reached out to try and help get coffee into some of the larger roasters, they're working on, contracts that are a year out. So it's like, even if you get that, which is, difficult, you're not going to see those sales for quite a while. So start setting all that infrastructure ahead of time because coffee is very relational.
Yeah. And as you were speaking of establishing that trust can be told through stories. And that's where you get those testimonials to help push that trust further. And we're going to get right into these stories with the Harvest to Pour journey. Everyone that has an episode with me, we talk about their Harvest to Pour journey. And this case, I think is going to be really great and unique because I really want to talk about that relationship between the roaster and the farmer. So go ahead and let us know about the farm a bit. How long has this farm been in the family? And when did you start realizing your coffee was a little different?
So my family, my great grandpa had a coffee farm, and he worked with coffee for many years. In 1990, he sold his coffee farm in Brazil. We had a president raise the interest really high. So everybody was selling everything, putting the money in the bank to leave out the interest. My great grandpa sold the farm and put all the money in the bank. The president couldn't pay everybody's interest. He held everybody's money. Everybody lost everything. My great grandpa lost everything. His son, my grandpa, dying, tried to plant coffee in a dry area. The leftover of the farm, the part that he didn't lose that we kept. And he couldn't never grow coffee there. So my whole family hated coffee. And my dad always made fun of them from losing everything with coffee. That's my mom's side of the family. So my dad when he retired, he wanted to go away from the city. So Conor is being there. He bought a place in the middle of nowhere, really up high, really hard to get there. Nobody can find him. And started working with coffee. Yeah, I can find him right now. And he helped every time I go there. So he started working with coffee like 12 years ago. And in the beginning, I didn't want him to work with coffee. And years go by, I go there and see he's in this situation again where people buy his coffee pretty low. People always try to hustle part of his coffee. He doesn't make profits, always complaining, had all these health issues, COVID, heart. That's how I come in and try to help him. And now the plan that we have is go there and talk to his neighbors and him. Me and Conor are going to help my dad, like, get a better coffee, teach him how to pick the right way and how to, raise beds and do a better job with his coffee. So the plan is to bring his coffee to America, the next container, and go to neighbor by neighbor. You already have people waiting for us in July. One of his neighbors, he invested everything in specialty coffee, sent his wife to school, really humble, simple guy. And I brought some of his samples to Conor last time I went to Brazil. Now he's expecting Conor to meet Conor and show him the farm and give him some advice how Conor wants things done. And they invest in everything. That's hope. You get a better price on his coffee. Like, I asked my father, like, do you see the difference between your coffee year by year? He's like, no, I don't see much of that, because he dark roasts his coffee and whatever. He stay behind just a little bit and drinks, but he takes the coffee to this guy, the city. The guy just tried the coffee. And if the guy really liked the coffee, the guy might give him $1 more per 60 bag.
Oh my.
That's, you know how good your coffee might be. It's like, might be good, might be not. I just sell it. He's so desperate to sell. And after me and Conor went there, we picked the coffee, prepared the coffee, and he brought it back. And Conor was like, hey, man, your dad had really good coffee there. So I think we're into something, and we're going to probably help him a lot.
Wow. So that was the piece to when you the one who realized how special this coffee was. And what did you pick up from it? What do you think? If you think is the land has grown on, or how cared for? What was that piece that? Well, even for you, Conor, what was the piece that really stood out?
I think for us, the opportunity to get over onto his farm, and his dad was totally open to letting us do processing experiments, and we don't even know what we're doing. These were all just experiments where we're like, wow, this is really cool, because we would like to understand the agricultural side significantly more. We'd like to impact that side significantly more. And that's something that my team specifically really is a goal for us, is to be on these farms, impacting what they do and understanding it from every level, just because we're in love with coffee, and the more we understand about it and the more we can impact it, the better. So it was really exciting to go over there. We ended up going over there with some different yeast strains, and then we picked a bunch of coffee from his farm by Drew, Blake, and Junior here. And then we were able to set up 5-gallon buckets, and we did some anaerobic fermentations with his dad's coffee with fruit from the farm. So that was the other really unique thing about his dad's farm, is that, oranges grow on there, lemons grow on there. I mean, there's so many different kinds of things that grow on his dad's farm just randomly, avocados. And then the neighboring farms all grow specific things that we ended up just taking things locally, putting them in with the ferments on the coffee for the processing experiments we were doing. We left that behind to dry, and then Agner shipped that back 2 months later And we were able to cup that up and, ended up turning out pretty darn good. Now, these were tiny little sample sizes. It wasn't like we were doing 100 pounds of anything. It was a 5-gallon bucket. But what we learned from that was, and what we learned from going around to all of his neighbors while we were there and tasting their coffee, is they're growing really good stuff already.
Okay.
We've got some work to do on his dad's farm because of his heart attack and his health issues. Some of his stuff went fallow, but it's almost like an experimentation, like a breeding ground to where we can go in there, we can impact that farm, we can learn along with his dad as we go. And in the meantime, set up these relationships with his neighbors whose farms are producing really good stuff already and just not getting paid for it. And maybe just impact that whole area in a way that is meaningful to us and maybe meaningful to them.
Yeah, I like that. You have the agricultural lab that is the farm and the roasting lab itself. And so these pieces are working in tandem with each other. What challenges was your dad facing? You said he just dark roasted. Did he know anything else other than dark roast, or is that a cultural trend in Brazil?
Yeah.
Oh,
I would say on these farms, the way that they've roasted coffee for as long as I'm aware of, and talking to his dad, that's kind of what it is. They basically all have these outdoor kitchens, which are incredible. And they cook a lot of things over open flame. And so they basically have a rotating, it almost looks like a giant soup can with like a handle and some ribs on the side, like a washing machine. They put their coffee in there and over an open fire, and the walls are like literally like millimeters thick of like, is it aluminum, steel, some kind of metal that conducts heat. But I mean, it's not a stable temperature. It's not controlled. There's no digital thermometers. There's no roasting software. It's, throw your green coffee in this can, put it over an open flame, spin the handle for 15 minutes. It roasts really dark. And that's the only way that they know their coffee.
I understand.
So one of the interesting things that we were able to do, and I, obviously wasn't the greatest representation of a light roast ever, but we just showed them how we could potentially roast that coffee even with that setup and maybe take it, a few degrees less and develop more notes in it. So while we were there, we were able to use this way of roasting that they do on the farm, roast it significantly lighter, and then be able to make pour overs for his dad and show him what else is in there besides just a dark roast, right? Like what he could actually taste in his coffee, what he could taste in his neighbor's coffee. So it kind of opened his eyes. And I think our goal this time would be, now that we've got some of this coffee here, would be to take some of that roasted green coffee with us, with our equipment, and actually make him his coffee the way we would make it here, with controlled water, with, everything being the way that we would sell it in our cafes here. I think that is definitely a goal for us in July when we go back, is to be able to take coffee to him and prepare it for him like he's sitting in the cafe, so we can see the beauty of what that coffee is in our eyes, right? Even though a lot of people love dark roast, and I'm not saying that those are not beautiful, because they have the potential to be very beautiful. We tend to focus on light roast, and we tend to want to develop those notes in there. And I think that can be very, very eye-opening for people understanding kind of the purpose of all of the stuff that we're doing, because they can see more than just, the traditional flavor of a dark roast.
And I was going to ask if you'd had sent any coffee to him and you have roasted yourself. And that's going to be since you haven't yet, that's going to be a great experience to observe him having his coffee roasted that way for the first time. It was
fun just watching him drink the light roast while we were there, or the more medium roast while we were there, because we made him a pour over of the stuff that Blake roasted over his fire. And, his eyes lit up and he smiled, and, it was really, really a meaningful time to be on that farm and get to know his dad and his family, and like the generosity of the people that we got to spend time with on those farms. We walked around, met his neighbors, and everyone you go up to, they invite you right into their house. They make you a cup of coffee. They give you a tour of everything. There's no secrets. It's an open book. And it's just a beautiful way of engaging with people and engaging with the coffee community that sometimes, we kind of miss that over here with all the secrecy and competition. It's nice to go over there and just be like, hey, let's all do something really cool together.
I like how, from a business perspective, you opened up options. It used to be one way, and you just did a lot of coffee. Now he can and now there's a reason to look at your coffee and your, what do you call it, lots, where they're grown, the terroir, and all the stuff that affects it, because all that's now going to truly come out in several different ways. So from a business perspective, you now have different options for people to pick from, depending on how they roast. That is, I think, that just in general, that would for any of these small farms. So going back to small farms, what are some of the general challenges you see about small farms getting out there, competing with the larger farms? even though they have things that are very specific and different because these larger farms probably have a very monoculture style of coffee.
I think they're under a lot of pressure. You gotta put the fertilizer on the ground, spend all this money getting the coffee ready, pick the coffee, dry the coffee, and sell the coffee as fast as you can, get the money, invest in the farm again, and they go by the market. Sometimes the market's down, but they gotta sell the coffee in a lower price and back to work again. Is they always under the pressure, always rushing to, because they can't waste time, like that's what happened with my dad. He had that heart condition. He couldn't put any fertilizer on his coffee or throw any other products he needed, and his coffee lost. This coffee didn't produce as much coffee. Still is good coffee, but doesn't produce as much. I think that's the main thing, and knowledge and connection, how they're going to connect to somebody else to pay a better price. They just know these guys on the city that buy the coffee from them, they resell coffee. So if in the middle of nowhere and you don't speak English or you don't know who to speak to, you're going to sell to whoever comes around and buy. Usually the price difference between one buyer and the other is, like I said, it's $1 or $10, the most. So I think that's what they got to deal with. The pressure of sell the coffee because they need the money to reinvest in the farm and usually these people buy the food for the whole year also after they get paid for their coffee. Buy a bunch of rice, a bunch of beans, and they eat their own animals, whatever they grow there, corn or soil. And I think that's the hardest thing.
Be sustainable.
The reality is they're 20-acre farms that they're not 1,000-acre farms or 10,000-acre farms. So if you're selling for commodity, it's like anything. And like if I have Upshot and we're a small specialty roaster that's not moving 10,000 pounds of coffee a day, I'm probably not surviving off of commodity prices, right? We're probably doing things in smaller amounts with much more care, much more selection. And we've got to get a higher margin and a higher price for all of that because we don't have, 10,000 acres to sell off of. So that's part of the issue is when you're operating with these small family run farms and you only have 20 acres, if you're selling everything for commodity prices to match someone that is using combines and machines and they have hundreds of thousands of pounds to spread those costs over, it really doesn't make any sense for your family to stay viable. So we've got to get them more specialty prices in order to allow them to actually feed their families and hire labor if they need help as people age and reinvest in the farm and plant shade trees where they need to, build drying beds if that's what they choose to do and that's what's best for the coffee. There's got to be it's like any business. There's got to be some money to reinvest the business. And when all you're doing is matching much larger people's prices for a less cared for product, and you're just accepting that because you don't have the connections or the ability to get it to market, to a specialty market, that's why we lose farms. Because they're trying to compete with big guys at the same prices and they're getting taken advantage of, and their product isn't the same product. And they don't have the scale in order for that to make any sense.
In order for that to happen, the specialty roasters have to really, you guys are responsible for growing this awareness of what specialty coffee is and why it might cost a little more. Its rarity, and as you said, most people won't budget paying more for other consumer products if it's rare, unique. And I feel like the specialty coffee is starting to kind of push for that. And that's the only way, that I'm just kind of bringing this out in a different way, is how to, both of you are really elevating each other.
Yep.
That's the logistics.
It truly is a relationship because, if there aren't these beautiful, small, family-run farms doing heirloom coffees, different varietals, and really taking care of the coffee, and all it is massive farms with combines, selling to McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts. And that's, I don't have a business anymore because that's not really what we present. So we need small farmers to do specialty coffee and for them to make money in order for us to buy their coffee so that we can do specialty coffee on this end and provide people a different experience than, a drive-through coffee place would. So it really is a win-win where we need them and they need us. So it's trying to link up those relationships, which, for me, it's hard to find. I would have never found his dad in Brazil without Junior taking me there and then showing me this area. And then I can connect with all the people around him. So it's really like, how do we connect with them? And then how do they connect with us? And there's, you're living on a remote mountain in Brazil off of a dirt road, which, the directions to find the farm is turn at the bench on the dirt road, a mile outside of town. And there is no address to that farm or any farm along there. Like, how do you connect with that without some kind of relationship, right? And then how do you develop those relationships if you're just on your farm working all the time? We've got to almost kind of help find these farms and then engage with them and continue to introduce them to our friends and figure out how we can help them.
Silva, are other farms, small family farms, the problem he announced, are they aware of this? Are they aware that they need to be found? Or are they not yet?
I think some people are. A lot of the farmers I spoke to, they still stuck with the old style. Because it's a lot of pressure on them if to try something new, or if it doesn't work. You know what I mean? What if I do a different way with my coffee and sell it? Or so they usually, some of them might be stuck with the way, like, I just gotta sell his coffee because I can invest the money in the farm and get ready for it. So I think a lot of them are not open mind, yet. But around my dad's farm, this little area, a lot of people already came to my dad and asked them, hey, when the guys come back, bring them to my farm. I want to learn and do in a different way. You already have to line up, they're really interested also. Because it will be a big change for them, like how to dry the coffee, put in a raised bed, try to pick the beans that are ripe, or take the fungi and stuff out of the coffee. And it is a whole different game. If you see a lot of people dry the coffee on the floor, animals walk with it and stuff. So what we want to do is get together these coffee farms when you go there and show them how you want it done, and then buy it for a better price. So they'll make more money and we get better coffee.
Okay. So what we kind of resulted, I was going to ask how can, from your perspective, how can coffee roasters find these farms? And it sounds like just the word of mouth of you have one farm that's, hey, I'm making a difference here. Everybody else around them, what are you doing? I want to know what you're doing. I want to get out from underneath this commodity problem. And that's what you just announced you're starting to see. So what else do you think roasters or people who want to find, I think it behoves for especially roaster to want to find unique coffees and unique places to grow. That's going to help push their difference in the market. What can roasters do to reach out?
I think you got to know somebody, right? These people don't even have social media. And I'm going to focus on this area where my daddy lives because it's so far from everybody and they know so little. And that's why I started to help my dad. And after I met the neighbors, after Conor went there, and they spoke to a lot of people. Like, after I went there with Conor, I went back there 3 months later. A bunch of the neighbors came to talk to me and bring their samples. So I think for the area where I come from and where my dad lives, you need to know somebody around there. Get connected with them. Or if you want, you can come to me now that I have the business here, and I'll be going. That's my plan. Go back there, get all these samples and bring you back to America this time and connect the people straight with the farmers. I'm already working on my next container. Container I brought it last year is already sold. And next year, I want to bring the coffee, my plans to bring already sold. Like this farmer to this shop, and will make it easier for me and will also give me opportunity to pay these farmers better.
Yeah. So this is a great opportunity for any roaster or coffee shop listening right now. If you are looking for that next new coffee or something different to push, get a hold of Junior over here. He seems to be that connection that you're looking for to find these remote coffee farms that may have something that nobody's tried yet. That is ideal. Well, speaking of that, where do you see taking your business next? Where do you want to take your business next?
Yeah, that's my plan. Like I just said, my next step will be, like, I'll be going to Brazil now in May, and I'm already going to be talking to these farmers that I'll have lined up. I want to bring 6 lots of coffee from small farmers. They're already preparing the coffee for me, like high-end coffee, specialty coffee, we call. And I want to connect those farmers to 6 shops here. And then when I bring the container next year, I want to know how many bags they'll need a year. And I'm going to buy those bags from those farmers. And that way, when I come, I already have those coffee shops line up. I don't have to be sending a bunch of free samples to 300 coffee shops, and they'll just throw my samples away. And so my first container, I didn't make any profit out of it, but I paid back every farmer I got coffee from. Everybody was happy. And now that I have a better game plan, focus more in my area, Last time I brought a lot of coffee from this huge farm in Brazil. They have really good coffee and they charge me a lot more than the people on my dad's farm charge for their coffee. So my goal is pay the same price I paid to this big farmer, people on my dad's farm, and just focus on them and get 6 to 10 lots, those farmers, and connect them to 10 shops here. That way, when the coffee comes, people already know where it's coming and go straight to them through the year in a contract for a year. Like, let's say you need 100 bags a year. Here's your 100 bags. I can deliver all up front, or I can send them every month 20 bags and they pay me as it go. And that's where I want to take my business. That's my plan for next.
That is awesome. Actually, I'm very heavily process minded, so I'm just drawing maps where all these things are coming together and then back out again. Seeing that, it's almost like you're kind of creating unintentionally, but for a good reason, like family farm co-ops. So now they're all in that area. It's almost like cooperative. Because they're talking, they're sharing ideas. You make it that, that support can also, and financial, they can lean on each other even more to expand or make the coffee even more unique, better. So this is giving back in a unique way. I love where you're taking the business and how the impact you're going to make on this community. All right. So finally, we're going to move into the last couple of questions. This is a kind of a fun one. It can be difficult for some, it can be easy for some. So within your business, within your coffees, I guess just in general in coffee, what is your favorite beverage in coffee? And also, what is your favorite beverage when you're just out in the town?
My favorite beverage in coffee is just plain coffee. A good cup of coffee from the coffees I've been drinking now. I have this blend that Conor and Blake made it for me. It's called I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu. And Lot 96 and Lot 3 from 2 farmers around my dad's farm.
Okay.
And that's my favorite coffee right now. I've been drinking a lot of it, doing a lot of pour overs, even doing espresso with it. And that's my favorite drink right there.
All right. And what about when you're just out in the town, no coffee available? What's your non-coffee favorite beverage?
Oh, no coffee favorite beverage? I drink a lot of caipirinhas. It's a Brazilian alcoholic drink.
Caipirinhas? What's that?
It's use a Brazilian drink called cachaça with lemon and sugar, and you squeeze them together. And the Brazilians drink that a lot. In America, we drink with vodka. And my favorite drink outside of coffee. But I try not to drink much because not good for you.
Not good for you. Okay, Conor, what's yours? What's your coffee?
Mine would be a pour over at Upshot or any shop that's doing really, really good versions of single origin coffee. I really also just love a double shot of espresso or a shot of espresso. Anything where I can taste what I believe that farm is actually producing from the soil. Like, I want to taste what is actually going on with that coffee in my coffee.
All right.
So generally speaking, I'm not going to have much milk or sugar or anything like that in there. I enjoy those as well, but I tend to refer to those as more ice cream beverages than coffee. So when I'm drinking coffee, I want to taste the coffee.
I understand that. You kind of hooked me onto that as well, Conor. So I appreciate that.
I mean, it's really, I think it's something that not a lot of people have really gotten familiar with yet. But once you start doing that and you start treating it a little bit more like wine or bourbon, where you're tasting the actual origins, the terroir, like, to me, it just comes to a whole new fascinating level where it's not just a commodity to you anymore. It's like each cup is a special representation of something. Oh, yeah. And that's why, like, the more you understand that, the more you almost want to know the farmer that creates that for you. And you almost want to be on that farm, touching their soil and seeing their trees and seeing the way that they do it. And I will say, like, one of the craziest things about Junior's dad's farm that makes me very excited about it is, like, in this area, one, he's got really good elevation for Brazil. But one of the things that his dad's done that I think has really helped his soil a lot will be great for the coffee as we continue to replant new stuff, work on the farm a little bit. He saved a whole section of rainforest off to the right. So nice. the ability to utilize all this natural area that's, it's not just like he clear cut this mountain and planted all coffee and it's all just coffee now. He's got groups of avocado trees, groups of sweet orange trees, lemon trees, all kinds of natural things growing throughout the coffee farm. And then off to the right where the natural spring comes. And so like even all of his water is like some of the most incredible water. I think we TDS'd it 6 ppm or something like that. I mean, it's about as pure as you can possibly get. So that water coming through the farm that's feeding all the plants is insane. And then the rainforest on the right, the birds, the microalgae that's present in that then impacts the farm right to the left of it. Wow. It's just a very wild and unique piece of property. The whole area is like that. So it shouldn't be overlooked, but I'm a little bit happy that now I'm aware of it and I have the ability to maybe not over there and see what they're doing.
Well, that was the longest explanation of a cup of coffee ever, but it was awesome. You did a complete story around a cup of coffee. So now when you're not drinking coffee, what's your beverage?
Probably kombucha.
Kombucha. All right.
I love fermenting stuff, which is probably why I love experiments of fermenting the coffee anaerobically.
There you go. I like the experiment idea. I kind of geek out on that. That's neat stuff, the fermentations. All right. And now usually I'll ask if there's any events or promotions, but you guys, when we were talking about how to support these farms, you just had an event that directly was starting to support Junior's father's farm. And I believe you're going to get around to doing that again. You want to talk about that event and how that, what the benefit of that is and the reason you're doing it?
So what we did a couple weeks ago at our Break Shop location that's over by Lindenwood in St. Charles, Missouri, is we did a special event on a Sunday when we weren't open to the general public. And what we did was we roasted and prepared the samples that we were able to produce on his dad's farm. So we wanted to be able to present those to people. They're very small quantities, and we wanted to be able to present those people in a way that really highlighted that work versus just being another thing on our Porva menu that maybe someone wouldn't know the story behind. So we were open for 3 hours, and we had a special menu that was only Brazilian coffee. So we had pour-overs of each one of our experiments that you could choose from. We had one of his dad's neighbor's farms coffees on espresso. And we were doing your lattes, your cortados, plain espresso. Everything was based around Brazilian coffee. And then his wife, who's a talented baker as well, made some traditional Brazilian baked goods and treats that we were able to package with those coffees and kind of provide an experience for anyone that's interested in this region and kind of being involved in something that was, we'll get two events out of it, because I think we have just enough coffee left to do one more event. But it's literally like, it's kind of a cool event where you come in, you get to meet Junior, you get to meet his family, you get to experience all the coffees that we're able to do. And once the second event's over, you're probably never going to see, well, you will never see those coffees again. We'll go back and do more experiments, but it's a pretty unique experience to engage in that culture, try new things, and get to meet a bunch of people and have a good time. It's not just a traditional coffee shop of go in, order a latte and a pastry and sit down and, catch up with your friends. It was more, hey, let's tell the story of this pour over that we're about to engage with and share some different Brazilian treats and really get to know that area.
Yeah, really promote this farm and what it has to offer and the culture.
Yep.
So you get a little piece of that along with it. This would be great advice to any specialty roaster that wants to promote these small farms and help lift them up so their unique coffee can be roasted and specialized with them and lift them up further. Like I said, this is definitely a symbiotic relationship between the two of you. And like you said, establishing that trust initially from the farm and bringing it up and having a contact piece, which Junior, you are uniquely placed for that. There may be, finding more people like that to represent other farms areas is going to be key for their discovery. And again, and establishing and I really like the not only the symbiosis, but the symbiosis of just the roastery as a lab to test things and the farm as a lab to test things and how well they tie together. And even to the point where it makes these coffee roasters realize that they have something more special than just a commodity. I think, and just how you described how fast that spread amongst their neighbors. And so you've described a unique model that in some ways is generations old, but in this world right now, I think is kind of being rediscovered. Guys, this has been a really cool interview, and I really appreciate both of you for being here and taking the time to talk about the grower to the roaster, or the true harvest to pour relationship you guys have. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for listening to Harvest to Pour, the business of beverages with Matthew Shipp. Check the show notes for our guest contact information and connect with Matthew Shipp on LinkedIn today.